But first, a Fox News alert: abortion activists protesting the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade for a third day now. But the protests are getting more violent, from rioters vandalizing buildings in Portland to criminals defacing the Vermont State House to arsonists setting a Colorado pregnancy center on fire. The Supreme Court decision gives the decision about abortion laws back to the states. And Stacey Abrams, who is running for governor again in Georgia, could play a role in those decisions in the future. But today on Fox News Sunday, she refused to say if she believes there should be any limits on abortion. Watch.
Do you support any limitation on abortion, or do you think that women should have the right to have an abortion all the way up to 9 months?
I believe an abortion is a medical decision, and I believe that that should be a choice made between a doctor and a woman, and in consultation with her family.
So I'm just asking you, you're talking about caring about the lives of women. I'm just asking, at what point do you start to care about the life of that baby girl in some cases? What
I would say is that it is a medical decision.
So I'm going to take
issue.
that as up to 9 months in some cases, depending on the woman. Correct?
That is not what I said. I said this is a medical decision.
I mean, it's stunning because you consider that 70 years ago, 90% of the country was against abortion. In the 1990s, Bill Clinton said that abortion should be safe, legal, and rare. And now you have Democratic politicians that won't even condemn an abortion in the 9th month, Nicole. It really is. It's been this shocking transition.
You know, we were talking before the show on how technology has really enabled us to see what is growing in the mother's womb. And I can tell you, after 20 weeks of age, you do see the human life form growing inside. I mean, we have MRI and ultrasound and everything, and you see the movements of this baby. And so for them to say that this isn't a human, and still consider aborting a viable, healthy child, it is really upsetting for a lot of people. And the radicalization of the pro-choice movement, in my opinion, is why you've gotten so much support for the pro-life movement, because a lot of people are against these late-term abortions. But the big thing, one thing that we're seeing right now, it's such a dichotomy. You're seeing violence on pregnancy crisis centers, safe havens for low-income women. I mean, how the heck does that represent pro-choice? Get an abortion or be targeted for violence? I mean, wouldn't it be great if we saw the same emotional and financial support that we're seeing with the pro-abortion movements for these crisis centers, for these women who are being told that they don't have the means to have a baby? That would be the ultimate pro-choice. Give them the choice to choose life. I mean, I had made this decision when I was 17 in high school. I became pregnant, and I am grateful every single day for everyone who rallied against me and supported me so I could have that child. Shouldn't we be doing that to support women who want to choose life? That is the pro-choice movement I am about.
What is interesting about what you're saying, too, is that it gets almost down to the morality of the entire thing. And not too long ago, to what you're just saying, Trace, Bill Clinton, you look back at Joe Biden even from, I think, 2006, right, and he has a very different stance on it. It was not too long ago that even people who are very far left or were very far left would even admit that it was a terrible decision for a woman to have to make if she had to make the decision to have an abortion, and that it affects the woman, it affects the child, obviously in irreversible ways. But now it seems to be championed in a way, and people are advocating for you to have an abortion as opposed, Nicole, to giving you the choice to choose whatever you want. It's terrible, and it honestly seems like there's a moral decay that is set in our society, and I think it's contributed to some of this.
And you've seen this, David, across the country, because you have these protests, these raging, angry protests. People are angry because there are now limits in some states on abortion. The Supreme Court did not ban abortion in this country. Your state legislature, if you live in one of those states, banned abortion or limited abortion. I know you're going to be shocked by this, but Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said something outrageous. I want to play it and get your take.
The thing that a lot of people don't like to talk about is the fact that not every Democrat is pro-choice, okay? So the ones that aren't, we really need to reassess if it's appropriate for them to continue to serve in 2022.
So if you're a Democrat and you are pro-life and you are for a moderate, you're out. You need to be out.
What's the second word there? Choice. What do the Democrats and the hard left want to remove? Your choice. This is about the lie that we've talked about, the pushing the narrative. To your point, they didn't ban abortion. There's a 15-week limit. That was what the case was about. That was before them. And states will decide. Stacey Abrams is one of the biggest frauds in this, but she's an example of this constant lie that's being pushed out. She's gone from, I was governor of Georgia, I should be governor of Georgia, to being a leftist organizer who's made herself rich at the expense of Georgians while lying about their choices. They have chosen in Georgia. That's how our system works. We're a constitutional republic. And from that, people make a decision that their legislators represent. We delegate that power to them. And that's why this country works well, not mob rule.
Yeah, and I want to, while we're on politics here, I know you know this person, the former president. It's fascinating because now you have Republicans coming out and they're saying, you know, this ruling came down because of the former president. And I'm going to play the soundbite and we'll get your reaction, Laura, on the other side.
I promise to nominate judges and justices who would stand up for the original meaning of the Constitution and who would honestly and faithfully interpret the law as written. Thanks to the courage found within the United States Supreme Court, this long divisive issue will be decided by the states and by the American people.
Let's listen to Lindsey Graham also very quickly because he also gives the former president credit for this. Watch.
This is a huge victory for the pro-life movement. President Trump deserves the lion's share of credit here. He fought like a tiger to put 3 constitutional conservative judges on the court. He stood behind Kavanaugh. And all of us who've been working for the last 50 years to get this right, to have a constitutional reset, Friday was a glorious day.
But you know who's getting hit? The never-Trumpers, because the conservatives are saying, listen, you are applauding this ruling by the Supreme Court, but you didn't have the guts to back the man who actually made that happen. Your thoughts on this?
Well, I think, you know, you heard it from Lindsey Graham. You've heard it from a lot of folks. It is because of the justices that Donald Trump nominated to the Supreme Court that this decision was reached. And what he said there, I don't think we can downplay any, or we should be downplayed, because he's used the word courage, my father-in-law, when he was talking about these justices. The fact that there was so much external pressure on these justices, I mean, how many times, you know, were we covering the folks outside of their homes, illegally there protesting, the assassination attempt against Brett Kavanaugh, and yet they still came to this decision. It actually goes to show you that these were the right individuals to serve on the United States Supreme Court. They had the courage to follow the Constitution. If you look at the Constitution, abortion is not a right guaranteed within the Constitution, and it should be sent back to the states so we, the people, can opine on it. And so, yes, a lot of people are giving credit to my father-in-law today. I'll be another one to do that.
You know, I'd like to add a Democrat point of credit for this, and it was important to the nomination of those justices. Harry Reid, who got rid of the filibuster. If Harry Reid hadn't done that, thinking maybe Democrats would be in power forever, then that ability wasn't there. And this is a win for the Constitution. Yeah. It's a win for the people.
Well, and I actually agree exactly with David. I understand what Lindsey Graham's saying. This is a big win for the pro-life advocates. But really what this came down to was originalism based on the Constitution. Right. And that is what the SCOTUS has ruled down on this past week. It wasn't pro-life, pro-choice. It was about the original concept of the Constitution, and therefore it is going to be delivered to the states. So it is much more legal than it is political and moral. And
the Supreme Court is saying specifically, let Alabama be Alabama, let California be California, and if there is a problem and you disagree with your state's laws, it is now back in your hands, and you can vote those people out or you can vote with your feet and leave. Thank you, panel.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.